Okay, hopefully my battery doesn't die, it's really low. Okay, so I want to talk about what the travel companion role is. So I attended a workshop on Hold Up. January 6th in Arizona, in Phoenix. It was a workshop, it was a 4-day boot camp. I was supposed to work the first day and work the last day. Jason was currently looking for a travel companion, travel assistant, travel model. It always kind of had a different word, but it was encompassed in the travel companion. It was specifically a job. He talked about how, now I'm not saying, I want to put this disclaimer right there, I'm not saying that previous girls that had this role were treated the way that he treated me. And a lot of times he lied about what they did to make it seem like maybe I should be doing this too. Like giving him back rubs and stuff like that, but we'll get there. Okay, so travel companion is different than a model. A model is someone that goes to the workshops and the photographers take pictures of them, they model. And sometimes they'll help him carry bags, or set up lights, or hold reflectors. The companion, while I was supposed to be able to do that stuff and be utilized anywhere that I needed, my job, and again it was iterated numerous times, was to stay by Jason's side. To stay by his side, to not be able, I wasn't really allowed to interact with the workshop attendees, really. I mean, I did anyways, but there were times where I got reprimanded for it. He said, you know, you spent a lot of time with the workshop attendees, I really need you by my side. And a lot of times he talked about, that's his love language, which we'll get to. Love language. Actually, let's just go over love languages. Love language is how you like being told that you're loved, or how you express love to other people, and everyone is different. And he constantly told me he just likes to be touched. He needs to be touched. He likes hugs, he likes hand holding, he likes shoulder rubs. He might have mentioned the foot rubs at that point, but it's something I was never gonna do. He constantly talked about how that was his love language, and I should, as a companion, learn his love language and kind of go to it. We didn't get to that point where we were talking about love languages till like a little ways in. My love language is like a -5 when it comes to touching. So let's go back to the interview. So in the interview, Jason said, you know, you're gonna be by my side. Just, you know, you're there as kind of, he kept calling me a muse, which, you know, I know with previous models, he did a lot of, you know, artful experimentation with them, so I was just totally down for that. Just for us to become really close. He talks about how work can be so draining, and workshops can be so draining, and so much is expected, and he has to do all this. Talking about how business is really draining. So what a companion's job is to just de-stress with him. He talks about other models that he would take on dates, and that he genuinely liked buying them nice things, whether it was clothes, which later eventually became, well, he bought people lingerie for nude shoots to do with them. He just talked about how, you know, my job is, I was like, so, you know, like friends? And he's like, well, you know, a little bit more than that. You know, we're supposed to be close. And always by me, and, you know, it basically kind of sounded like a girlfriend. And I told him during the interview, I said, just to be clear, and I remember this being very vivid. I'm saying really angry now, but it was really like, kind of just real like innocent. Like, just to be clear, you're not asking me for, like, it's not gonna be anything sexual, right? He's like, oh, no, like, I've got a wife and kids, there's no way I would do that. And I said, okay, well, like, I just want to be clear, like, I'm not saying saying that, you know, you are like that, but, you know, there's been times in my life where men have taken advantage of just kind of a vulnerable position that you're in, and, you know, and me thinking I'll be, you know, at this dude's beck and call, that, you know, that I'd be in a very vulnerable position. When I came home from that interview, also, during that interview, he invited me to the whole interview after doing one day in workshop in Phoenix, and he told me that, you know, he really liked me, seemed to get along. I gave him a hug, and I was like, I don't normally hug people, so it's kind of a big deal. And you know, we actually genuinely just got along. I'm not saying, I don't want to make it seem like he was just a bad guy from start to finish. I mean, a lot of this stuff was, had I known what he was trying to establish when I took the job, then obviously I wouldn't even be here talking to you right now. So he just seemed like a nice, you know, charming dude, and he was well known. He was the most well-known photographer I'd ever worked with. I was only like a month into modeling at that point. I had done film like before, and so I wanted to branch out to modeling to kind of uncover a little bit more artsy side with me. And here comes this celebrity, basically, this dude who is a Sony artisan. He's got tons of followers on YouTube, and I kind of figured if he was a creepo, it would have come out and I would have heard about it, or it'd be somewhere in the internet. So I was just basically, you know, really kind of trusting with him, and it kind of sounded like a dream come true. And, you know, and I'm not one of those people that usually thinks, well, if it's too good to be true, it probably, you know, is, or yeah, it's probably not true, or whatever. So I was very naive, but opportunistic. I was very like excited, optimistic about the whole thing. So he asked me did the workshop. He invited me to interview with him. He said, during the interview, we're gonna do an implied nude shoot, because I'm not a nude model, and I told him as such. And so he said, we're going to do an implied nude shoot. You know, we won't see anything. It's really just to see how well our chemistry is from photographer to model, which made sense to me. So he hooks up, or we meet at this place in Tempe called Moxy, and we do an implied nude shoot that eventually became a straight up nude shoot. He just kind of, he'll go with the flow when it comes to the shoot, and then he will innocently tell you, you know, the curtain thing that you're behind, move it away, and you're kind of like, you're already warmed up to the shoot, so you just kind of go with it. And then I honestly don't remember, and I can tell you, right, I mean, honestly, knowing the guy, I can see it could have gone this way, but I'm not going to tell you that he told me to take off my underwear for that shoot, because I don't remember. I know that in later shoots, it was expected of me once every trip, he said, to do a sexy shoot. And in those shoots, we would always warm up with just a boudoir like lingerie, and then he would always make me take my clothes off. Which again, I just, you know, I thought I was making it weird by being like, well, here are my boundaries. And a lot of times he made it about, well, I'm just trying to get you out of your shell. I'm just trying to open you up to new ideas and really help you grow as a model, because I'm an amazing photographer and I groom these girls to be amazing models, so I'm going to groom you to be an amazing model, but you have to go with the flow. That's about all I have for the intro and the follow-up. So now I'm just gonna read through some of the more incriminating texts and also how they relate to the video that he released. So, the only thing that I actually really want to discuss, I'll show you plenty of inappropriate texts that I've gotten from Jason, just showing that it's not that, you know, just because I was painted in a light where, oh, look at this girl just being totally inappropriate, totally unwarranted towards me, just because he says that doesn't mean it's true. and how it was months of ongoing. So I wanted to speak to the companion role again. It started as an expectation of, XYZ, and then just became more and more boundaries. First place we went to was a hotel with one bed, and I actually had a panic attack and had to move to the couch, which I also have text about, but I don't feel like I have to show you all this stuff, that stuff anyways. Or maybe I should, I don't know, but, and it was just going back and forth between me wanting to keep my job and him telling me basically, you have to act like you really like me. You have to act like you're my travel girlfriend. And so there are certain things that I compromised on my own values for. Actually, at the time, I probably didn't have a ton of them, considering, no, I'm not even going to put that. Just because I was in a dark place, or just because I was, more... Anyways, all that aside, it was a constant struggle of pushing boundaries, of either an inappropriate touch, an inappropriate word. He'd ask me out on dates. So we had this week, February 5th, the workshop at Jekyll Island, February 8th, workshop in St. Augustine, February 11th in New Orleans, which is the Mardi Gras, which is the one that was pointed out on the video of me acting inappropriate towards Jason. And I actually want to tell you about that week because it actually is a very, very telling story, and it's very important to this whole thing. So up to this point, I had been guilt tripped a lot about I wasn't comfortable sharing beds. I wasn't comfortable with him touching me. I constantly told him, don't grab my butt, don't rope me, don't do stuff like that. And at first when he was doing it, I said to myself, well, technically, I haven't told him my boundaries yet, so maybe we just need to have that discussion. So we have the discussion in San Diego, workshop January 23rd. And so I had that discussion. These are my boundaries. Don't touch here, don't touch there. I said, don't touch my boobs, don't touch my butt, don't touch my vagina. He said, I've never touched you there. I said, I get that. He's never touched me on my vagina, but he had touched my boobs at that point. He touched my butt at that point. And I told him, don't touch me there. I'm not okay with it. And, you really need to slow down because I really don't know you that well. I uprooted my life to be your companion, and you seem to keep pushing my boundaries and not respecting what I want. And I'm not saying, that we can't be close friends, but we need to start out as friends. So we had that discussion. So we're on Jekyll Island on the 5th. We show up and there's one bed, and I am obviously very uncomfortable by it. So Jason kind of huffs and gets a room with two beds. So I'm sitting in my bed, he's sitting in his bed, he decides to edit. I'm reading a book. And he just snaps his laptop down and said, what are you even doing? Why do I even have you here? I could have come in here and read a book next to me. You're not doing anything for me. And that led to hours of conversation. I went off. I said, I told you in Phoenix that if you were expecting anything sexual from me, that you needed to hire someone else, that I wasn't the girl for the job. And I told you not to do these things. I told you not to touch me in certain places, and it seems like that's not enough for you. And it just became this big argument. And basically, at the end of it, I was able to talk him down and kind of convince him, like, hey, just slow your roll. Maybe just back off. Let me not sleep in the same bed as you, or even in the same hotel room. Like, maybe I'll still be your companion, still be by your side doing the workshops and stuff. But maybe let me sleep in the other girls' rooms, because it really made me uncomfortable. And so eventually he compromised. What I didn't know is that he had turned me into a model at that point. And that's actually very important. So keep that in mind. So we're in St. Augustine, February 8th. And when we were in St. Augustine, I can't remember if it was the 8th or the 9th, Jason suggested that we go on a date. because that's what he does with his companions. He told me, it's like a casual thing, but it feels like a date, but it's not a date, but it kind of is a date, you know? And I don't know if it was like a seduction plan, but took me on a date. We went to a nice restaurant. We went for a long walk. We walked holding hands. I mean, I was just, you know, I was like, I can deal with this. I can, you know, be that kind of companion without all this extra stuff. And we got into a discussion. You know, he thanked me for that night and everything. He said, in regards to, at the time, you know, me having just communication issues, just not really understanding his assistant. At the time, I was like, I don't think she likes me. And he said, it'll get easier if you aren't in a transition state. Being fully in one role and not in two will make it easier once you're ready to make that decision. So again, he brings up the role. What he was trying to drill into my head is like, you are either a companion and you straight up commit to it, or you're a model. They're not, you can't be a model and be a good friend, like you're a model or you're a companion. And I wasn't really receiving what he was actually telling me. So it was like constantly we were arguing about what he's like, you're not committed to the role. I'm like, of course I'm committed to the role. I quit my job. I sold cars for 2 years. Like, which is another thing, saying on his video that all the girls he hires are just girls with no jobs that have never worked. I was selling cars for like 2.5 years, and I quit that to pursue my dreams. And so anyways, on the 10th, which at that point we are on the way to New Orleans. Driving, he flew, we drove. He said, I had done a love language test, and I sent him, and it's a 1 for physical touch, 10 being the highest, quality time was my highest, 1 was physical touch, I want to be in touch. And I screenshot it, and I said, hey, my love language test. And he said, makes perfect sense. It's why I drive you crazy. I said, you don't drive me crazy. I drive you crazy. And he said, you're like, get away from me. The test says all. And I said, no, you're like, love me by rubbing up on me. And I'm like, I love you by knowing we're enjoying the moment at the same time. So, oh, right. And then later he says, well, at least I'm spending time with you. I said, quality time, that's the key. He said, well, I've been focusing on your love language a lot to give you time. Because again, I was saying, you need to back off because it's stressing me out that you're touching me. And I said, hey, honestly, I love it. I'm working with your love language too, meaning I'm trying to be okay with touching you. He said, that's good. That's the only way it works if both people get their needs met. I said, very true, because why would you disagree with your boss? So basically, by the time we get to New Orleans, there's 4 of us in one, they're 2 separate rooms, but it's 1 bed and 1 couch, and there's 4 of us, and we're supposed to share it. So I don't know if 2 of us are supposed to be on the couch, or 1 of us is supposed to be on the floor, or whatever. There are no cots. This is just a motel type situation. You know, I'm really trying to work because he straight up told me in Jekyll Island, like, if you don't figure out what a companion is, basically, or, you know, whatever, you're going to have to make a decision whether you're a model or whether you're a companion. And so, I don't know if that had a lot to do with it, or if I just, you know, I genuinely wanted to give the girls some space, because it was kind of, I mean, for a room that was packed as much as it was, with all of our stuff, because we all had a bunch of modeling gear with us, that, you know, I figured it might be easier if I just stayed with Jason. So he asked me later in the night, you know, what's going on, and I said, hey, I think that, shoot, I just lost the text. I said that I wanted to stay with him, and we slept in the same bed, but like polar opposites of the bed, and nothing happened that night. Totally fine, or whatever. And then at that workshop, I'm starting to warm up. Dude gifted me a camera. I think when we were in Jekyll Island, he gave me that camera. And so me again, just totally manipulated by this guy to constantly push my boundaries, told me we're in New Orleans, and I just tried to focus on being a good companion. I held lights, I held umbrellas, I did whatever, you know, he wanted me to do. You know, I was getting all excited about, you know, like the one clip he has of me just jumping up and down on his shoulders. And he keeps making the comment about how our breasts are against him. First of all, we're not thinking that. We're not trying, girls pushing their boobs on them. Like, that's not like a thing. And so I'm jumping up and down behind him because I'm excited about Mardi Gras. And he said, "Do you see this? This girl's clinging on me and her boobs are on me." I'm like, well, actually that kind of speaks more to your pervert mentality, that that's what you're conscious of after all that. I'm not even thinking about that. And then he talks about how I'm hanging on to him when my hand is just on his back because we're in Mardi Gras. If anyone's been to Mardi Gras, you have to touch the person in front of you or you will probably lose them and never see them again. You'll probably die. So, and the camera thing, the camera kiss.
Kill it. You ready?
Do you want to get a kiss from the camera? Got you!
Yeah, that was me being cute, that was me being snarky. I mean, a lot of times, you gotta try to sell that you actually like this creep. So yeah, a lot of times you do stuff like that. Not that he really complained, because later he says this. Anyways, and then eventually we get into a discussion. Okay, so he does talk about how I'm starting to find my role, because, and he actually told me that we're holding hands and walking, and he said, "I think that you're really fun, you're really trusting the role." So we get home.
Okay, so my SD card ran out of memory space, and while I could just delete all the footage that I had or figure out how to delete it and all that fun stuff, I don't want to do it because it took me so long to figure out just how to set up that camera. I'm actually like awful at cameras, so that's why I'm always in front of one and out running one. So I apologize for the insane drop in quality of video, for the video and probably the audio as well. So because I ran out of space and I was really tired yesterday, I was kind of, overwhelmed. I didn't make the end of this video until the next day, so hence why I look completely different. So, oh yeah, so we're with the text. Okay, so you give me $600 in New Orleans and $325 just now. That's $925. Shouldn't it be $1250? $125 for 10 days, $1250. And I got $925, which is, like $325 less than what I was expecting. He said I have to check to see how many travel days versus shooting days there were. I said, what's the difference in pay between the two? Travel days are half. I thought it was $125 a day when on the road with you or your team. Yeah, that's true. When you're actually doing the companion role. Why? Because when it's a non-shooting day, you're actually still working as a companion, which is a benefit. When you're doing what the other girls do, it's not. It's one reason I've been wanting you to find your right role in place. By the end of the trip, it seems like you definitely did. So in the future, it'll be $125 a day when we're together. So let me just stop right there and talk about how he just clearly said that, one, I'm not a model. That I had to choose to be a model or choose to be a companion. So in his video, when he points out about, well, Sierra's doing this and the other models aren't doing it. First of all of us models were always buddy-buddy with them. But second of all, I wasn't just a model. I was actually in a transition phase where, or rather a phase where I didn't know what I was. He didn't know what I was. He wanted me to be his companion. I wanted to have the role of a companion. It pays more money and it's a freer job. But I just wasn't willing to do all this other stuff. So when he starts guilt tripping me, and by the end of the, again, to quote, by the end of the trip, it seems you definitely found my right role in place of being a companion, which the end of that trip is New Orleans. is when I was jumping up and down, touching his shoulders, when I kissed him on the cheek, when I was going for the camera, which, by the way, a kiss on the cheek is still not a green light for sex. It's still not anything but a kiss on the cheek. I seriously go to freaking church and kiss people on the cheek when I see them. It's not, that doesn't mean anything. But Jason takes things out of context completely, uses it to spin this story about, here's this girl that's being inappropriate. Notice I don't reciprocate. Actually, you smiled and kind of bashfully like, well, okay. You didn't seem uncomfortable at all. When I was jumping up and down, you didn't seem to mind it either. There's plenty of times where we were walking, holding hands. There were other times where you did more than that, and I don't see a video on that. So anyways. So wait, I get paid $125 a day as a companion. What's my pay right now? Just $100 a shoot day and $50 when we're traveling? That's the model pay, yeah. Okay, so day 2 in St. Augustine, for example, I didn't shoot and I just stayed up with you. I didn't shoot, I wasn't a model. And I just stayed with you. So basically that stay by my side. I did exactly what you wanted me to. What's the comp for that? In day 1, where I did shoot in St. Augustine as a model, but we went out later on a date, what's that? That not being a companion? I think going on a date is a little bit more than being just a model, just like all the other girls. So then he says, Sierra, I'm not trying to short you money. I haven't done a straight up day by day breakdown, but you can't half outdo the job. But you can't half in, half out do the job. Stay with the girls / not know what you want to do. Go back and forth, etc. It's just too much. That's why after Jekyll, I told you we had this argument that lasted for hours when we were on Jekyll Island. That's why we're on, why after Jekyll, I told you I was moving you in with the girls and in their role until, again, as a model, until you decided what you wanted to do. Things get a lot easier for everyone once you find your space. It appeared to me that you did by the end of the trip. That's why I said you had until the end of this month to decide and for me to evaluate to see if it's the right fit. Again, that's straight up manipulation. You have till the end of the month to prove to me that you want to be my companion. Which, by the way, the end of that month we didn't even get there because that was Vegas and that was the end. And that was as far as it went. And I don't know if Jason thought that he could get away with what he got away with because maybe he thought after this conversation I'd be desperate enough to do more things to make it seem like I was a companion, or if he thought just because I gave him a kiss on the cheek in New Orleans that was a green light to do whatever he wanted. Maybe he was genuinely confused, but it certainly isn't a picture of I was inappropriate towards him completely unwarranted. Anyways, I don't know if you can hear the signs in the background, but they're in my video too. Okay, that's why I said you had until the end of this month to decide and for me to evaluate to see if it's the right fit. I mean, I did breakfast with Quisha. Does that mean she's in a new role now or gets paid differently for that day? I went out to dinner with the entire team many nights. Does that mean they're all my companions and you aren't that day? No, it means once you're in your role, you're in it and life gets easy. But the vacillating back and forth has a burden on you and others. I said, okay, I can't have this conversation with you over text. I'll call you tomorrow. And then we talked, he said, well, then it's going to be tough. I don't like things unsettled. So if there's something to discuss, let's get it done. So at like 10:30 at night, we had a conversation about that. So again, just to recap, that is clear evidence that I was not a model, that he paid me differently because I was a companion, and that he used roles, that he used job titles, which, by the way, is whatever my career, whatever my job would be as I was traveling around with this guy. He used that as a way to get me to do things I didn't want to do or make me be okay or make me push my own boundaries and compromise my own values for him. So, So next day, actually, this is just a little classic. I'll post it up there for you to see, but just, you know, I just really want you to see this. Actually, well, it's going to have to be clearer in the video. Playing this word game, and the words are hand job. And I said, I feel like my game is hinting at something. He said, LMAO, wow, your love language is changing. Said in all caps, I didn't put that. This game is like word mahjong. He said, LOL, it must be psychic. Is that something that a boss would just text to anybody? Like, oh, a hand job. The game must be psychic. Like, what was even the implication? I actually said no. ... Anyways, I'm learning Spanish. I know a decent amount, but I want to be fluent. Completely change the subject because I'm not comfortable with that kind of stuff. And yet again, in his video, plasters me as someone who is inappropriate towards him. Man, I'm getting way more heated tonight. Okay. So one of the last things that he said is talking about a couple times where he mentioned that Death Valley is going to be really fun. And I even sent him a text before going to Jekyll Island, not Jekyll Island, Death Valley, saying, you know, that I thought he was a wonderful person, that I loved him for having a good heart, you know, like just mushy stuff. That a part of me meant, but you take small parts and small truths, something that you can stomach, and you blow it up and cater to what you know this guy with an ego bigger than my future. I don't even, like, I don't, you cater to people. You cater to your boss, who's in a normal work environment? No. But when your life is this dude's life, yeah, you do. Okay, anyways. So he continued to be more inappropriate progressively, and I'll post some more things. But basically, as we were getting to Death Valley, he was getting more and more inappropriate. It was a lot more aggressive about, you know, I talked about how I wanted to do a shoot, like I wanted to try doing shoots with models that were like sexy shoots, like with a guy or with a girl. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? What are you willing to do? How far are you willing to go? Is something that he said. And then he, you know, talked about me shooting nude, and I said, well, I don't want to do a nude, and I told him that a couple times, and he's like, well, hey, I mean, if you want to get out of your shell, that's what you need to do. And then I sent him like a ton of pictures of like, no, this is more what I had in mind. I mean, that's plenty of shell breaking out. But so it progressively got worse when we got to Death Valley. And then and I already told you a little bit about Death Valley. So that was the end, and in a weird way, it circled back to how I started these videos, with a girl being left alone or just dropped off at an airport, and then stopping to take a hard look at what she had given up for herself, for some jerk who completely used her. And it's crazy how much you'll convince yourself that something's okay, or that you can get over stuff, or maybe it's not that bad, or maybe I'm overthinking it, and you just keep pushing things because you really want to pursue your dreams. And this man knows full well that that's exactly what you think. That when it all came crashing to a stop, I had to stop and process what had even happened. And I sat in an airport for several hours waiting because he just dropped me off. And then I had to wait several hours for my flight. And I had to just sit in an airport, and I was just crying to myself in a corner because I felt less than worthless over all of this. So that was the whole story.